wonderful speaker today, and then we'll get Brenda started. It's all you, Rob.
All right. It's so great to have everybody. I feel like I'm how many of us remember Romper Room? Anybody remember Romper Room, or am I telling? Yeah. And I feel like every time somebody pops on, it's like, oh, look, I see Jim and I see Vicky. Oh, there's Mark. But it's so great to see everybody's faces. Today we have a wonderful opportunity to have Brenda Jank with us. Brenda and her husband, Tim, they have been actually the executive directors at Camp Luther Haven for 27 years. If you have not been to Camp Luther Haven, it is a place of rest in and of itself. And early, probably in the mid, I think, 2010-ish time, Brenda experienced quite a personal epiphany. She might share a little bit of that with you. And it really drove her into a place of understanding that, you know, it's one thing to work hard. And that's a dynamic that many of us, especially as Americans, have been trained that we are to work hard. That's where our value is. That's where we get accolades. And that's where we feel really good and purposeful. But there's another side of that has everything to do with resting well. And Brenda has taken that message not only to Fort Wayne, but all over the nation about how to effectively understand rest. And she likes to call it the rhythms of rest, finding the rhythms of rest so that we can actually be better equipped and fueled to go back into the workplace, back into our homes, back into our families, and be, as the popular saying is, be our best selves for those that are around us. So Brenda, we thank you so much for being with us today. And I don't want to take up any more of your time because you have some very valuable content for us. So God bless you. And Brenda, welcome.
Thank you. It is a joy to be here. I'm going to share my screen right now so that we can get the PowerPoint up and going. And I think here we are. My name is Brenda, and I'm the founder of Run Hard, Rest Well. We know how to run hard. We don't know how to rest well. Run hard, rest well, and we change lives. Run Hard, Rest Well are thought leaders in the arena of restorative wellness. Since 2015, we have had the remarkable privilege of impacting 12,000 individuals and over 200 organizations. We are passionate about what we call change theory. Change theory reminds us that new insights don't necessarily change us, but new social norms do. And so we love impacting individuals, but we are passionate about impacting organizations to create organizational change. All right, guys, we are here today to catch our breath. 2020 has been a wilderness adventure with a steep climb up an endless mountain. And 2021 promises us another range of mountains to climb. Today, we want to add value to your personal plan on how to thrive and flourish in 2021. I grew up in the Chicago area. I went to college in Nebraska. I had a bunch of young adult adventures, Mexico, Canada, and Florida. I ended up back in the Chicago area where I worked in a church for 3 years, ended up at Camp Luther Haven. And then in a span of 6.5 years, we were blessed with 5 of the finest, feistiest children ever assembled under one roof. Take note, we have 4 boys. There's going to be a special place in heaven of moms of 4 boys, and it's going to be a couch. And I can't wait. This is our crew today. I am one blessed mama. Before Tim and I were married, we knew we wanted to adopt special needs children. In the course of our lifetime, we said yes to a child with sickle cell anemia and yes to a child with mild cerebral palsy. What we got was a child with sickle cell anemia, Asperger's, stroke disorder, severe attachment disorder, spina bifida, hydrocephalus, fetal alcohol syndrome, and bipolar disorder. I share this with you today because the message we're going to explore today is the real deal. If this had not gotten a hold of my heart, I would not be here today. Restorative wellness. Wellness is a really hot topic, but the truth is we are actually less healthy today than we were 10, 20, and 30 years ago. Why? Because most wellness programs have to do with food and fitness, and our poor choices and our bad habits around food and fitness that lead to medical conditions. And this is important, this is critical, but it's not enough. It doesn't address our overload and our exhaustion. Restorative wellness is basically bucket theory 101. We give, don't have. Why are you tired? There's a good chance that you are tired because is there enough white space and margin, breathing room in your calendar? Maybe yes, maybe no. COVID has added more white space, and that's been a blessing. Number 2, your to-do list. There's a good chance your to-do list gets larger and longer every single day and every single week. Number 3, crisis. We can be tired because of the crisis in our own lives and the crisis of others. And finally, we are often tired because of people. We love people, we value people, but the truth is, again and again, people can drain us dry. But we're not here today to talk about why we are individually tired. We are here today to talk about why we culturally are tired. That's the missing ingredient, this discussion. So why are we tired? Number 1, resting well. Think about the people who most impacted your life, influenced you. They were probably great at running hard, but there's a good chance they did not model resting well. More is caught than taught. Number 2, we tend to believe that new insights will change us. We regularly feast on great wellness information, but so often it's not creating the change in our life. And number 3, we have ended up with a faulty view of rest. The current view of rest in our world today, number 1, rest is foolish. If you snooze, you lose. Number 2, rest is shameful. I should not need it. I am a person with high capacity. And number 3, we try to tell ourselves that rest is selfish. How dare I take a break when there is so much to do? There is a new view of rest, and it comes from an ancient library of 66 books and modern science. And what does it tell us? Number 1, rest is set apart. There's an ancient culture that reminds us that rest is special, it is prized, it is prioritized. Number 2, rest is non-negotiable. In this ancient culture, rest was not only an invitation, it was actually a command. Rest is intimately tied to our work. Without rest, without time to refuel and recharge, our work is not all that it can be. In an ancient text, there are words to describe rest that we are not familiar with today. It tells us that rest, that there is a joy and a delight. There's soaring on the heights. They refer to it as an inheritance, as a feast. We are not familiar with a rest that restores. And finally, this is the change agent when it comes to restorative wellness. Rest is a community commitment. In this ancient culture, rest was not a solo endeavor. The command to rest included, I want you to rest, but I want your sons and your daughters to rest. I want the people of your community to rest. I even want your animals to rest. And there's a brilliance in that. Rest cannot be a solo endeavor, because if we commit to rest on our own, but no one else around us shares that vision, the guilt will eat us alive. I was born and bred a type A person. I knew I was type A, but I didn't know how much until I had children that were old enough to use the microwave. And I was having coffee with a friend one day, and one of my kids came in and said, Mom, should I put this in the microwave for 11 seconds or 22 seconds? And I said, I think 11 will do. And my friend Peggy looked at me and said, Brenda, what in the world? 11, 22. Why not 10 or 20? I could not believe that an educated adult was asking me this question. Why in the world would anyone in their right mind waste their time moving their finger to 2 buttons when you could hit 1 button twice? At that point, I recognized that I was passionate not only about productivity, but also efficiency. And today I am still equally passionate about those things, but I am as passionate about rest as I am about my work. So I came out of middle school tired, high school tired, college tired. I landed in Chicago, and I have been blessed with a body that does not keep up with my dreams. This was in the early 90s, and I ended up getting very sick. And when in this illness, the church gave me some sabbatical time to rest well, and a dear friend gave me a book on Sabbath rest. And it was a wake-up call that there was something in my life that was missing. And so I became the most passionate, miserable Sabbath keeper the world has known. I had this great head knowledge, but I couldn't translate it into my life. And then the pastor that I was working for created a staff mandate telling us that we all needed to begin to explore personal retreat. Type A as I am, I signed up for my retreat, but I'm an extroverted person. And as passionate as I was about quiet time, the idea of 8 hours was overwhelming. So I thought, you know what? I planned all these projects that I could get away from the office, be away from the phone, and in that quiet space. So I packed 2 big bags. And as I was heading out of the door, I ran into Jock. He said, Brenda, what are you up to? Hey, today's my first personal retreat. Are you done? And in so many words, he said, Brenda, today, I want you to rest well. I want you to listen carefully, and I want you to produce nothing. I tasted rest on that day, and it was transformational. It began the journey of run hard, rest well in my life. So during that time, I created a definition. Rest is not a reward. You cannot earn it. You do not deserve it. It will never be convenient. Rest is a responsibility and a rhythm for those committed to giving their best to the world. But know what? More than any definition of mine, Book 2 of this ancient library tells us, rest, work hard, but on the 7th day, do not work, so that all may be refreshed. To rest well is to do what refreshes. In our world, we know what amuses us, what entertains us, what numbs us, distracts us, medicates us, but we are not familiar with what refreshes us. When it comes to rest, there's one rule, and it's absolutely brilliant. Stop doing what consumes your time, your energy, and your attention, and turn away from those things and do what refreshes and what restores. Every one of us today in this gathering, we are refreshed in unique ways. For some of us, it is a 5K run. For some of us, it's lunch with a friend, a long nap, a good book, fishing. There is no right way or wrong way. We need to understand and be self-aware of what uniquely fills our buckets and refreshes our hearts. Restorative wellness. It's all about redefining rest and exploring red flags. We just took the time to redefine rest. Rest is choosing to do things that are truly refreshing, that fill our buckets in strategic ways. But we need to hit pause and explore red flags in our life. What is the impact of overload and exhaustion in our life today? Many of us are winded, we're worn, and we're weary. Some of us are so winded and worn, we are actually wounded. Our hearts bear scars for the pace of the race that we have been running. And some of us are so wounded that we are actually wounding people we love. So many of us believe that stress is the enemy. And the truth is, stress is not the enemy. We need stress in our life. A great example is violin. If the strings on a violin have no stress, no tension, that violin will not be capable of making beautiful music. If those strings have too much tension, they will pop and the violin will not function. But just the right amount of stress and tension, beautiful music emerges. The enemy in our life is actually cortisol overload, especially in the chronic state. You know that it is not a crime to be tired. At the end of every day, we should be tired. At the end of every week, we should be tired. But it is a crime to stay that way. Every single week, we are committed to refilling our gas tanks. And every single night, we recharge our phones. Why? Because if we don't do those things, they will die. They have to be refueled and recharged. Why do we think that we can keep going without refueling and recharging? There is a price tag for cortisol overload. It impacts us relationally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. When Run Hard, Rest Well speaks of our spiritual bucket in a workplace wellness session, we're talking about our growth track toward joy. So what is the price tag relationally? We end up with unsatisfying relationships. We end up overwhelmed, disengaged, wrestling with guilt and loneliness. When it comes to our physical bucket, if it's empty, we end up wrestling with sleep issues, immune dysfunction, hormone imbalance, blood pressure issues, weight gain, early death. When we wrestle with our spiritual bucket being chronically low, we wrestle with diminishing joy, discontentment, restlessness. We dismantle our sense of purpose. And when our emotional bucket is chronically empty, we find ourselves wrestling with irritability, anxiety, anger, depression, addictions. Masks on kids are really cute, but today we're finding that masks on adults aren't so cute. When we wear emotional masks on our hearts, we end up wounding ourselves and others. We end up setting up walls. I went to my first AA meeting when I was 16 years old. It was an amazing experience for me. My mom was an alcoholic and it was an open meeting. What I discovered in that meeting was that for the first time, I witnessed a group of people who recognized that it was okay to take off their mask, that they could stop pretending that everything was okay when things really weren't okay. We need communities. We need workplaces where there's a degree of honesty, both personally and together with safe people about what's really going on in our lives. The truth is, life is messy. In all of our lives, there is good. There are beautiful things and people in my life that fill up my bucket. But in my life and in your life, there's also bad things. There's hard things. There's unexpected things that take chunks out of our heart, things that are outside of our control. Right now with COVID-19, there is so much out of our control and it is hard. It weighs heavily on our hearts. But there is also ugly in our life. And the definition of ugly is what comes out of me. It's reacting to people in a way that hurts and dishonors them. Run Hard, Rest Well has to talk about ugly because as overload and exhaustion, as the cortisol rises in our life, so does the ugly. And we need it to act as a red flag, a wake-up call that we need to take a break. From AA, I have learned that it is okay to not be okay. It's a universal reality. Number two, it is inviting and it is freeing to live life unmasked. And transformation in our life and in our organization requires transparency and honesty. And ongoing transformation in my life requires an ongoing transparency. When we do not rest well, red flags begin to fly. Those red flags remind us that it is simply time to take a break. Our empty bucket can become a gift to us, reminding that it is simply time to fill her up. And there is no shame in that. And there is a lot of joy. But we need a history lesson. How, as a culture, have we gotten to this place that overload and exhaustion is the cultural norm? Prior to 1897 and the invention of the light bulb, sleep in our culture was protected. Prior to 1960s, in the US economics honored rest, there was a rhythm of life culturally that was protected. Prior to the 1980s, children's activities were more limited to afternoons, and evenings and weekends for families were protected. Prior to 1990s, access to information was more limited. We didn't have the internet, and there was a more natural boundary set between work and home. And prior to 2000, people weren't accessible 24/7, and sanity was protected. My friends, there is no more rhythm in our life. Restorative wellness is all about rhythm. We recognize to be healthy and whole, we need to rest relationally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. When we refuse to rest, we become relationally disengaged, physically depleted, spiritually empty and dry, emotionally exhausted. When we choose to strategically rest, we become people who are happy, healthy, hopeful, and whole. And how does this take place? By embedding rhythms: Sabbath, sleep, stillness, and solitude. We're going to take a look at those 4 rhythms, but before we do that, we need to remember every single week we are given 168 hours to live. And there are only 3 ways to invest that time. Number 1, we can choose with our time to work hard. We can invest our time into resting well. We can also choose to waste our time. What is our definition of waste? It's choosing to escape excessively. What's the number 1 way that we escape these days? It's often a screen of some kind, whether it's social media, whether it's surfing the internet, whether it's more work, whether it's Netflix. There is nothing wrong with Netflix. There is nothing wrong with some time on social media. But when that sums up our time of rest, there's a problem. There is a problem with escape. When we choose only to escape, we will always come back empty-handed. Escape does not allow us to refill our buckets with that which is going to give us energy to be able to pour out into the lives of others. And when we, and too much escape can lead to overuse and addiction, and that causes problems in our life, in the lives of those we love, and in our work. Right now, I would like to encourage you to stop and take inventory of your life. Are you willing to exchange your go-to escape mechanisms for a predictable, planned, and prioritized commitment to rhythms that restore? We're going to take a look at these 4 rhythms right now, just a brief look. We've had an opportunity to explore kind of the what. The what before us is our overload and the power and the purpose of restorative wellness. But the key is the why. Why do I need this? And the key is the how. And right now, we're going to take a little look at the how. But in the context of 35 minutes, we can't dive into that. The Run Hard, Rest Well website and what we offer individuals, what we offer organizations, help people dive into the how so it makes a difference. So Sabbath reconnects us. It's a relational rest. It is a guilt-free time set apart to reconnect with the people and the priorities that I hold most dear. It is a carefree freedom to laugh, to rest, play, unhindered and unhurried. When my daughter Anna was 7 years old, she said, "Mom, am I going to have to use the word hurry when I'm a mom?" "Honey, why are you asking me that?" "Because I don't like how you act when you use that word. Hurry up. Get on your shoes. Brush your teeth. We're running late. Get in the car." In our world today, it is go, go, go 24/7, and that is not a conducive way to live. Sabbath rest is an invitation to take our foot off the accelerator and coast and come to a rest. Sabbath is a strategic stop. Whether it takes place on a weekend day, whether it takes place on Wednesday afternoon or Thursday night, we need a predictable, prioritized time that we can count on, that we know. Start with a few hours, work it up, but that practice becomes life-giving. Sleep. When did you go to bed last night? And when did you wake up today? Count those hours. Science tells us that 7 is the magic number. For us to be at our best, we need 7 hours of restorative sleep. Without sleep like that, our bodies will produce up to 50% more cortisol. Cortisol is damaging. Everything Run Hard, Rest Well speaks of. These 4 rhythms are all about reducing cortisol overload in our bodies. Sleep rejuvenates us. Prioritizing 7 to 9 hours of restorative sleep each night positions us for vibrancy, vitality, and good health. Stillness. Stillness is a pause with a cause. Stillness replenishes us. Planned and unplanned stillness is a pause with a cause that cultivates joy, gratitude, and purpose. And solitude. Solitude emotionally recharges us. Solitude is an invitation to step away from the fray because minutes matter, hours make a difference, and a day away delivers. Run Hard, Rest Well has strategies for you and your team that allows us to embrace a rest in a matter of minutes, hours, or a day away that changes the game. Restorative Wellness highlights the quality and the quantity of our rest. The quality of our rest are choosing strategic things that really refill our bucket and give us what we need so we can run our race. But it's all about quantity as well. If we took the hours that sleep requires about 56 hours. Remember, we have a week that spans 168. If we take a look at a Sabbath rest that truly is restorative, of stillness practices, of solitude commitments, that comes up to almost 80 hours worth of time. Guys, we were made to run hard, but we were made to rest well. Restorative Wellness equips leaders and their teams to run hard and rest well, because who you are matters, and what you do every day makes a difference in this world. As we wrap this up, we want to invite you to choose life, an abundant life, liberty, and the pursuit of sanity. My friends, it can be ours. We hope that you have caught the vision of how we can catch our breath. But we also hope that you've caught a vision of what restorative wellness can do for your team, your family, and the communities we live in, whether here in Indiana. In my breakout session, we had people from Illinois. We had a woman from Kenya. Whatever communities we're a part of, we can be a part of the change. We want to catch the vision, and we want to cast the vision. Today, we explore the DNA of Run Hard, Rest Well through a turbocharged 35 minutes. This means that you got a lot of new insights, but you did not get our typical innovation. Run Hard, Rest Well seminars and retreats that we lead for organizations in person and in line are punctuated with brain science experiments, tons of great stories, hard questions, personal reflections, small group discussions, and these crazy things called anti-gravity moves that are guaranteed to make your team laugh. These events and seminars are often a launching pad. Run Hard, Rest Well is passionate about organizational initiatives. For smaller organizations, Run Hard, Rest Well becomes a do-it-yourself wellness program. For larger organizations, Run Hard, Rest Well complements and bolsters existing programs and initiatives. Businesses, corporations, government, higher ed, nonprofit organizations, and churches, let's together catch a vision for restorative wellness. The vice grip of overload and exhaustion is unraveling our hearts, our homes, and the infrastructure of our communities. We can make a difference. We can be the change. So let's catch the vision. Let's cast the vision. Let's start a revolution, and let's begin today. Thank you so much for being with us. I can't wait to see your questions. I hope you have a remarkable day.
All right, thank you so much. And Sarah, I don't know if we have questions, but
Yes.
folks, please post your questions in the room and then we'll have Brenda answer those.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually do have a couple that just came in. So we'll start with, first of all, Brenda, amazing, wonderful. Like, I feel like that just spoke to me in so many ways. So thank you for sharing. We have a question from Lisa. She says, as a mom of 5, and I'm curious about this too, how did you learn not to use the word hurry, or did you learn this after they were adults?
I think I actually probably continued to use the word hurry. But man, it was a wake-up call in my life. I, again and again, had to remind myself. I was convinced that in my 15 minutes before we had to leave, that I could try to stuff 20 things before I got out the door. And so part of it was going, you know what? Let's enter reality. Let's try to get 2 things done, and work on getting those shoes tied or those teeth brushed. So yes, sanity, reality, breathing.
Thanks so much for sharing that answer. We're going to head over to Cam Davis, who's also on our First Fridays board. He's going to ask the next question.
Yeah, actually, Brenda, Gwen has a question. She says, where does the rabbit start? The hamster wheel is demanding and hard to jump off. That's what I want to know too.
Cam, what was the first? So the hamster wheel, it is hard to jump off. What was the first part of that question?
That was the first part of the question. Was where's the hamster? Where does the rabbit start? And then the hamster wheel is demanding and hard to jump off.
Right. For me, my journey began with conviction. I was passionate about being a mom. Growing up in an alcoholic home, I had dreams of what my family was going to be like. And by the time I was 12 years old, I had read every single parenting book in our public library. I'm this over this top type A person. as overload grew in our life, I spent more than 330 nights in the hospital with our kids. The amount of brain trauma issues that our children face, our daily life was over the top. And I recognized that if every single day my children needed more from me than I had to give. And I looked in their eyes, and I had to face a conviction that when I did not rest well, the ugliness of me was coming out on them. And these children that I passionately wanted and prayed for, I was wounding them. And so my journey began with conviction on 2 points. The conviction, that self-awareness of how I was impacting the people that I love the most. And for me, a personal conviction about Sabbath, about rest. I wanted to be a person who lived well, and I knew it couldn't happen without Sabbath. And it meant some real change in my life. But for some of us, it can begin with conviction, but it might begin with inspiration or desperation. So we have to name it. What is going to call us into something new and better?
So powerful. Thank you. We have another question. This is from Josh Wymore. He says, what is the book you read that was so transformational?
Okay. Thank you. I now probably have a library of 200 books on rest, but the very first one was called Keeping the Sabbath Holy, Wholly, by Marva Dawn. And it laid the foundation in my mind that there was something, I grew up in a church, and we were a family that we went to worship every Sunday. And so I believed I was a Sabbath keeper, that going to a worship service equaled Sabbath keeping. And this book woke me up that there was something about a full day rest. And I wanted that. But Run Hard, Rest Well recognizes that for many of us, the idea of a full day rest, of an 8-hour rest, a 6-hour rest, even a 3-hour rest might be impossible. And so we celebrate, encourage small steps in the right direction. There is power in a partial solution. So this week, no matter the day, no matter the time frame, can you commit 1 or 2 hours? And my friends, research tells us that even 5 minutes, if you can hit pause, go outside and sit. I love to walk outside, but there is a power of sitting. And clinical psychologists have discovered that we can up our wellness by setting a timer and sitting. Taking slow, deep breaths and just sitting, watching the sunlight, watching the clouds can move us. So these small commitments can make a difference. And if we're in a place right now, most of us are in a pretty cold place, but if we can take off our socks and shoes when we're outside, we can up healing restorative hormones by 30% if our feet are grass. This morning, it was not 5 minutes, but it was 1 minute. I had 1 minute of stillness, of quiet outside in the moonlight. The moon was bright. I could see shadows. And so I went out and I danced in the moonlight. And I watched my shadow. Those small things breathe life into us. So the sun is out here in Indiana. So maybe if nothing else, take a walk today and turn so you can see your shadow and do a little shadow dancing, and let the joy bubble up.
Brenda, my goodness, you were like speaking life right now to me. And honestly, if you had an audiobook or something, I would listen to it on repeat. I seriously would. It's just such a soothing voice right now.
Yes.
But I'm not gonna make this about me, although I could. But I have another question. And give you 1 second. And just lost it that quickly. I'm sorry. Janine had asked, what types of resources are available to assist teens in developing healthy rest habits?
Okay. You know what? Again, your voice cut out just a little bit, Cameron. So what
Okay.
resources are out there for?
for developing healthy teen habits, teen rest habits.
Teen.
Teenagers.
That's an incredible question. Run Hard, Rest Well right now is in the process. We started work with teenagers last year. Through COVID, we have been passionate about getting this message. And so we field tested outside events with teens, and we are launching our first video series, Run Hard, Rest Well, for students. It's going to be available in February. It's designed for schools. It's designed, so we have a school-focused program, public school, but we also have a video curriculum for churches and after-school ministries. So we take these 4 rhythms and we use the analogy of NASCAR racing, and the idea that, you know, race cars scream around the track at 200 miles per hour for 500 miles. And often the race goes not necessarily to the fastest driver, but to those with the strongest pit stop strategy. And so we embed the Run Hard, Rest Well message in that whole idea of strategic pit stops. And it's life-giving. The impact with the kids, we have worked with kids who are at risk for dropping out of high school. We've worked with college-age students. We've worked with middle school students, honor students, and across the board, they are loving this message. So it will be out there soon.
Wow.
Awesome.
Awesome.
That's
Wonderful. Yeah. Cam or Sarah, are there any more questions? Do we have time for a few more questions?
There's no other questions in the chat right now. If you think
Okay.
of something, feel free to throw it in there. We have just 2 more minutes maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Well, thank you. Brenda, we can't thank you enough. I feel like your presentation, everything that you spoke about was so transparent and heartfelt. It has impacted me. I don't think there is a person who has tuned in today on the Zoom call who has not been impacted by what you have shared. And typically, if I close a First Fridays, I try to kind of make mental notes of closing out with a phrase or 2 about what the speaker said. But I have these little pink sticky notes, and they're plastered all over my dining room table this morning. And I truly don't know which one to highlight because there were so many wonderful nuggets of truth that you spoke. And I think that we're all motivated to not only run hard, but to rest well. So thank you so much, Brenda, for bringing that message. It's timely, and it was definitely life impacting. And so motivating. I think we're all motivated to really, really consider the rest that you spoke about. And so thank you again, Brenda. We really appreciate it. And so thank you everyone for coming to our December 4 First Fridays. And just so you know, our January First Fridays meeting will be not on January 1st, not New Year's Day, but on January 8th. So please make a mental note that our first Fridays of 2021 will be January 8th. So it's going to be the second First Fridays. The second Friday will be the first Friday. Does that make sense?
It doesn't make any
I think I
sense
confused
whatsoever.
myself. So our featured guest that day will be Anthony Giuliano. And for those of you who are familiar and know Anthony and have seen and heard Anthony, he's been a pillar in our community. And so we're very much looking forward to hearing him speak and bring a message on leadership. So thank you again, everyone. I just want to encourage you all to run hard and rest well, and to have a very safe, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I hope you get a chance to do some shadow dancing. So thank you, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Brenda.
Bye.